This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au, Australia's #1 address in property. With more properties for sale than anywhere else, we make it easier.
Thanks for being with us here on Business Now. Let's take a look at the home auction markets around the country over the weekend. I'll say it was pretty strong because across Australia, 1,470 auctions. But have a look at this clearance rate, 66.8%. It really is pretty phenomenal given what's going on. In Sydney, 491 auctions, a clearance rate here. Look at that. It's quite a remarkable 70.1%. In Melbourne, they went even better. 558 auctions, a clearance rate there was stronger at 71.9%. Brisbane, 79 auctions and a clearance rate of 64.6%. In Adelaide, have a look at this, 45 auctions, not a lot, but a boom time like clearance rate of 77.8%. And finally, Canberra, where there were 52 auctions and a clearance rate of 69.2%. So what the hell is going on? Let's bring in here Anne Flaherty, Economist with REA Group. And what happened? Didn't all of those people, those buyers over the weekend, take any notice of the RBA rate rise, or even the Treasurer saying ahead of the budget there are tougher times ahead?
Yeah, what we're seeing in the property market is really showing the resilience of property in Australia. The fact that interest rates have now increased 11 times, yet we've seen property prices actually increase over the first 4 months of the year, really speaks to the fact that there's still really robust buyer demand out there.
So isn't there potentially an issue here that the Reserve Bank looks at that demand, looks at the resilience and says, well, we just have to keep raising interest rates until it disappears?
Look, I think really part of the issue is that there's just an undersupply of homes for sale at the moment. So a lot of people are actually very nervous about interest rates, and sellers in particular have been quite hesitant to bring their properties to market. We know from realestate.com.au data that there's been an increase in people searching to buy properties. We've seen an increase in people inquiring to buy properties, but that hasn't been matched by the same increase in the number of properties for sale. So until that balance changes, we're going to continue to see these better clearance rates, and potentially higher prices as well.
So people aren't stupid. They can see 400,000 net migrants coming into Australia this year. They can see average rents around the capital cities up by 25%, in some areas more than 30%. They can see all of this. They can see today the Bureau of Statistics numbers that show that housing approvals are basically at 11-year lows. So all of that really adds into this mix, which is kind of why you'd suggest that a lot of investors and maybe even renters right now are jumping in ahead of any price movements.
Well, if we do look at dwelling approvals, which were released by the ABS today, they are incredibly low. It does point to the fact that we are likely to see the supply of housing in Australia fail to keep up with our growing population. And for people who are thinking about investing in real estate, this points to the fact that, property prices are going to continue to be very resilient over, the short, medium and long term, unless we see a shift in this trend, unless we see more homes built.
Well, that's the point, unless you see more homes built, because the migration certainly is helping Australia's economy right now. The other thing is whether you just start to see the Reserve Bank start to really hit more interest rate rises. But again, that even goes against the grain, because the US Federal Reserve they're talking about might start to pause interest rate rises there. So all of this is part of the narrative that investors and buyers have to work out.
Yeah, I think as well, what we're seeing is that people feel more optimistic that interest rates are close to their peak. Whether or not they're there yet, we are very close to the top of the cycle. And, there's more and more people forecasting, more and more economists forecasting that because of these economic headwinds that the global economy is facing, that will impact Australia. That will impact how far the Reserve Bank can move on interest rates. And if we do see those interest rates start to decline or stabilise, that will really boost, I think, buyer confidence, and that's going to lead to even more activity.
I guess that's so true, because people would be actually doing the maths right now and saying, well, look, if I can afford it now or even a couple of other interest rate rises, well, the fact of the matter is, if there's not too many of those to come and we're going okay right now, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth remembering that, there are a lot of home buyers out there. Around half of people who own a home actually don't have a mortgage. So there's a lot of people out there who are in a pretty good position to sell and buy again, or are sitting on a lot of usable equity. So the relative impact of interest rates varies significantly across buyer types. And there are a lot of buyers that just haven't really been impacted by these interest rate rises.
And Flaherty, good to have you in the program today. Many thanks for your time.
No problems.